So there's not a lot of market history for Bitcoin. I mean, we know that. It's only been around for about 8 or 9 years at this point, ballparking. But we wanted to take a look at just how much investor returns have been juiced if you were in Bitcoin. So we looked short, medium, longer term, and there's a chart of Bitcoin, at least on the Bitstamp prices. So we know that, it was sub $100 at one point. It got all the way to near $20,000 at one point, and now we're back down to where we are, about 10,500. If you got in, say, 3 years ago, all right, back then in mid-January of 2015, Bitcoin was around $250 a token, 3 years. So even with the market moves that we've seen to the downside over the last couple of weeks, you still have a $10,000 investment at that time worth $460,000-ish as of yesterday. It's a little bit less today because of the price move. Over the last year, you're still doing pretty good. It's still worth about $125,000. But if you look at it just over a month, from the highs to now, that $10,000 has lost around 40% of its value. So that $10,000 is now worth $6,000. So that gives you a little bit of a short-term, medium-term, longer-term time frame
so it's not
on
the
returns.
Growth of $10,000. This is the return on $10,000.
Well, no, that's
because
that's
you've
how
lost
much.
$4,000, right?
Well, $10,000 invested initially is now worth those dollar amounts that we put up. We put up there.
Okay.
We want to then contrast it to the stock market. Not because we think that they're comparable in terms of investment or risk or anything else, but because other people choose the stock market as a way to invest in anything. Over 3 years, if you bought the S&P 500 SPDR ETF, undividend adjusted, just price appreciation, that $10,000 is worth $13,700. That's pretty good.
But that's compared to $450,000.
But it is. But still, I mean, we're in a mode in the stock market where a 30% return is a good thing, right? I mean, that's what we know. Over the last year, you're still up $12,200. That's what it's grown to. And if you invested just at the high of Bitcoin over the last month, your S&P 500 return would still be positive as opposed to the minus 40% in Bitcoin right now, 10,400. The reason why we want to show those is because we just want to put like the context behind the moves that we've seen. It also calls into question whether or not, if you've held Bitcoin for a long, long time, whether or not you're still in it. Because if you watched at the highs, that $10,000 at one point was worth around $750,000 at the highs and is now down to $460,000. How much pain would you have suffered as a Bitcoin holder or investor before you would have hit the sell button? That's going to be a big question for a lot of investors.
I need to raise my hand.
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
I wish you would always do this.
You want me to always?
Because I wouldn't call on you most of the time. I wouldn't.
Who would you call? There's not a lot
I wouldn't
of people
call on
in
you
the
because I know what it would be
here.
about. It would be about,
That suggests that you think you're the teacher. Interesting.
Oh, I do.
So separate.
I just have a very poor pupil.
Ooh, okay. Separate issue. Do you think that people are buying this stuff on margin or taking out loans or doing? I mean, I'm trying to understand whether there's forced selling going on.
Well, anecdotally, we have heard stories about it, right? The headlines about I've mortgaged my house to buy Bitcoin.
Right.
That family in the Netherlands that sold everything they owned to live in a trailer and bought Bitcoin.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of anecdotal
There's a
stories
handful of the, but when I look at this sort of massive selling that's clearly gone on, I'm trying to understand what's driving that beyond just the psychology of it. Is there actual economic pressure on some of these owners?
So, I mean, that's a good question. I don't know. Here's what I would say. I'm not sure how many lenders out there, whether you're a traditional brokerage or a bank or otherwise.
I don't think anyone wants to lend against this specifically.
Correct, right.
So the question is whether people are using, but I guess what
are they taking HELOCs, home equity loans, to go and buy Bitcoin?
Or doing other weird things that we're not really thinking through here?
There may be some people out there, but you don't feel as though this is a prevalent thing, right? I mean, Bitcoin hasn't grown enough in size where people are tapping the home equity, which is trillions of dollars in the U.S., right? In terms of the total value of real estate to do it. That may not mean that it won't happen at some point, but right now, yes, there's probably forced selling, but maybe not as much because of traditional margin calls.
You can always be our teacher.
More news from Apple. I can confirm